are living in the era of cities. Migration from the country to the city hit a tipping point in 2008. More people now live in cities than in rural areas. In the United States, a staggering 8 out of 10 people live in cities, and this number continues to grow. If you are one of the 8, you're one sleepy city probably wide awake. Maybe you live in a city with an exploding startup scene, an economy supported by diverse industry, or the rare city still dubbed affordable. Maybe you're enjoying new cultural amenities and the job opportunities that a bustling city provides. More likely, you're feeling increasingly frustrated by traffic, congestion, the increasing cost of living, and a lack of authenticity in new construction. As a resident of Denver, one of the fastest growing cities in America, I feel the growing pains. I've witnessed my commute get longer. I've wondered about housing decisions my family will make as prices continue to skyrocket. And I've watched as soulless apartment buildings pop up on what seems like lot after lot throughout the city. Our neighborhoods and our cities are changing before our eyes. At times, it feels like urban growth is happening to us, that we have to sit back and watch as the familiar becomes unrecognizable. But as an architect, I'm here to tell you, you have more power than you think. I believe the architectural process provides us with a different way of thinking, a process that is collaborative and imaginative and might help give us agency to shape the connected urban lives we aspire to lead, now and in the future. But how do we engage in this process, and what do architects actually do? I decided I wanted to be an architect at the age of 3. My parents were happy to facilitate my interest in buildings rather than Barbies, and provided me with an arsenal of wooden blocks. Here I am at age 7, constructing my favorite building typology, zoos. To further cultivate my interest, my parents introduced me to the most famous American architect of the 20th century, Frank Lloyd Wright. I was hooked as I learned about Wright's uncompromising, almost militant approach to realizing his sole design vision. I imagined Wright to be the example of what all architects must be like, lone inventors. I imagined Wright sketching buildings, cantilevering over waterfalls, and ascending into spirals, only to be built in a matter of days. For an open-ended school project, I took the liberty of recreating Wright's sketchbook. On the last page, before the days of Photoshop, I collaged myself next to Wright. A bit awkward in my 8th grade dinner dance dress, we stare out into the future, imagining the epic visions and realities to come. So fast forward to my first year of architecture school, where I quickly learned, and humbly learned, that what I thought architects did and what most architects actually do are 2 very different things. As it turns out, architecture is a fundamentally collaborative process. This Frank Lloyd Wright ideal of solitary creation, it's a myth. And there's good reason for that. Buildings last 50 to 100 years, if not longer. And they impact countless numbers of people. So the role of an architect, it's to discover rather than to invent, to listen to the goals and ideas and desires of the client and the community, and to work through many different iterations until you find a solution that works best for everyone. And at the heart of this architectural design process is not accepting what is, but imagining what could be. To be an architect is to be a futurist. We know how to design a building that works for people in 2017. But how do we design a building that works for people in 2067? How and where will people work? Where will people live when we've run out of land space? How will people arrive at buildings? How can building design accommodate constantly evolving solutions for technology, human connection, and occupant health? These are questions architects ask themselves now, because a well-constructed building, it will last that long. One example of forward-thinking design is Denver's Union Station. It's hard to even remember what the building used to look like, but the 120-year-old station was an island, stranded in a sea of parking. Meanwhile, Denver was experiencing a profound transition from a declining, polluted city into a vibrant urban hub. The downtown needed a physical marker that reflected what it could become. To create this vision, not only was the station renovated, but 2 wing buildings were added on either side. The captured space between the buildings was then imagined as public plaza rather than parking, activated day and night by seating, fountains, and most importantly, people. This is what Union Station looks like now. By asking what if, the many contributors to this project transformed an urban artifact into a beloved city landmark. So I've been practicing architecture for almost a decade now, interning and working in cities like Shanghai, Chicago, New York, and Denver. I've worked with public, private, and nonprofit clients on a range of projects. And because I'm constantly engaged in this design process, I've started to see and think about the world differently. I've come to see the field of architecture as optimistic. By asking what if, rather than accepting what is, we're forced to imagine possibilities rather than dwelling on ideas with limited potential or that simply don't work. So let's go back to that thing that isn't working, urban growth. Yes, it's true. Our cities are evolving before our eyes. That is an opportunity. Now, more than ever, we need everyone to engage in the question, what kind of city do we want to live in? Because I live in Denver, I've spent a lot of time imagining possibilities for our city. Like many American cities, Denver is experiencing rapid growth. The city is currently experiencing a 5-year building boom, with $2.5 billion worth of development and 3 million square feet of new construction added to the downtown in 2016 alone. So today, in the spirit of architectural optimism, and to hopefully start a dialogue, I'd like to share a few design scenarios I've created that imagine the future of Denver, and really imagine the future of any growing city in America. By drawing inspiration from cities across the world, we can imagine new, but importantly viable strategies for transportation, ideas of how we might use public space, and most importantly, how we might experience our day-to-day lives in the years to come. So first, what if Denver was a seamless city? Denver is, and always has been, the trading post of the West. Across the country, there is untapped potential in regards to high-speed rail. A well-established technology throughout Asia and other parts of the world, not capitalizing on high-speed rail seems a continued missed opportunity that would position Denver as a critical link in a national network, moving people, goods, and ideas. Imagine popping over to LA for the weekend without ever getting on a plane, or heading to Boulder for a meeting or a hike and arriving 5 minutes later. What if Denver was a truly active city? Traffic is one of the ugliest byproducts of urban growth. As one of the fittest cities in the country, and already equipped with a robust bike share program, could we not look to cities like Beijing and Copenhagen and consider elevated, all-season bike paths that would connect our downtown seamlessly with our many urban neighborhoods? And given Denver's athletic climbing culture, why not utilize big blank walls on buildings and infrastructure as climbing walls? So to take this idea one step further, let's look at 2 major forms of urban and suburban infrastructure: roads and shopping malls. As society shifts to driverless cars and e-commerce, aka Amazon Prime, what if Denver was a self-sustaining city? The United States currently has 2.65 million miles of paved road. The Dutch company Solar Road has developed a road and a bike path that doubles as a solar panel. Now, we know Denver has 300 days of sunshine, if not more. Could we maximize our climate and new technologies to shift the balance towards renewable resources? And on the building scale, let's look at, wait for it, Cleveland. Cleveland is in the process of repurposing shopping malls as greenhouses. So imagine your mall that you go to sometimes. Now imagine your mall, but it's equipped with hydroponic systems, daylight harvesting atriums, and a farmer's market that you can go to every weekend to buy fresh produce all year round. One question we are probably all asking ourselves daily is, what if Denver was a more affordable city? Maintaining affordable housing options amidst gentrification, it's an age-old problem. Chilean architect Alejandro Aravena has successfully designed incremental housing, in which the government funds the construction of half a good house. In other words, a home without any embellishment, but all the necessities. As time and resources allow, homeowners can add to their home with things like personalized finishes, landscaping, and even infill enclosed square footage where you see those empty bays. Now, given Denver's dire need for entry-level housing near the downtown, could we follow suit with more agile housing strategies? Along those same lines, what if Denver was a wild and equitable city? As cities continue to densify, there's often a redistribution of public and private space. One of the more successful models of maintaining public access to private buildings is San Francisco, where private buildings of a certain size must designate space for public use. So as your city continues to develop and densify, imagine being able to visit the downtown and being able to access a network of public spaces ranging from galleries to rooftop gardens to lobbies that would facilitate much-needed culture, leisure, recreation, and, amidst all this urbanization, a sustained connection to nature. Lastly, what if Denver was a bold city? Much of downtown Denver was developed in the 1970s, and let's face it, it feels like an endless grid of windows. Building owners are in the process of repositioning these buildings with new designs to appeal to a new generation of tenants. Could these renovation projects also be seen as an opportunity to transform our urban image from the mundane into the, dare I say it, whimsical? Embrace change and bold visions. Let's treat our city as an architectural laboratory. Unlike New York and Chicago, developing cities are still teenagers. They have not experienced hundreds of years of maturity marked by history and density and development. These cities are knee-deep right now in exploring design solutions that will address urban growth. In the next few years, decisions will be made regarding transportation, public space, open space, not to mention the addition of hundreds of new homes and buildings. We already pass them every day. These decisions will change how and where we live. So how do we all play a part in imagining what could be before we're asking ourselves, what could have been? The design process only works if it's collaborative and based on a shared vision. And perhaps the first step is just engaging with your city in a different way. The next time you're out and about, or asked to weigh in on a design decision, pull out your own pair of VR goggles and try to imagine the what-if scenario with the greatest long-term impact. We are living in the era of cities. Our urban lives are busy. They require a constant balancing act between the personal and the professional. At times, it's understandably really easy to forget the biggest driver of development, that no matter which city you live in, cities are made by people for people. We are all architects trying to build lives defined by options and experiences that give our days meaning. Now, if we could collectively apply that sense of care and thoughtfulness to the development of the cities that we live in, it's hard not to get excited about the what-ifs.